On the go? So are we. Get the IBJ Media app, your all-in-one news source for Indiana business news. Get breaking news alerts, read every story from IBJ, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Lawyer, and listen to your favorite podcasts all in one place. Big news, small screen. Search IBJ Media and download the app today.
When what worked stops working, I point purpose-driven leaders to Prolific, the growth firm. They turn plans into results with full-service marketing and strategy, focused on outcomes, not vanity metrics. Head to prolifichq.com to learn more.
Don't be afraid to go after something that you want to try. If a door cracks, you got to run through it. You can't think like, is that door cracked? Like, should I wait? Like, I still sometimes don't understand how quickly I was able to get to a job like this. It's because like I knew what I wanted to do, and I showed up in the rooms where I thought the people that could help would be at. I got to know them. I listened more than I talked. If somebody made an introduction, I definitely followed up on that. And anytime like a window got cracked or a door got cracked, I just powered through it and took opportunities. I said no to very few things.
Hi, I'm Dave Neff, host of Talent Scout. On this show, we shine a light on Indiana's next generation of leaders who are making a difference in business, community, and civic life. These are real conversations about purpose, mentorship, and building a future that matters. Join me as we invest in leadership that lasts. Welcome back to another episode of Talent Scout with Dave Neff. I'm thrilled to have my guest today, Blaine Zimmerman. Blaine is the Chief Talent and Marketing Officer for the Indy Chamber. Blaine, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to sit in the same chair as esteemed human beings like Maggie Cunningham.
That's right. Yeah, Maggie was a great past guest, and it's fun because you and I just had lunch a couple weeks ago, and now look at us. We're sitting here having this conversation. We've known each other, I think, from afar for a while now. I met you, I remember when you were at InVets, which we'll get into that. But I like to start with all of our guests on Talent Scout. You know, this is certainly about your career, but also just about you personally and the forces and experiences that have shaped who you are today, right? I know you're married, you've got 3 sons. Might talk about that later. But in terms of let's go back to the very beginning, your childhood, where you grew up, what was it like? What were those formative kind of 0 to 18 family years like?
Yeah, so early childhood, I grew up in Tipton, Indiana. It was just me and my mom. We lived with my great-grandparents for a long time. So really interesting insight and wisdom from my great-grandparents that I learned that shaped who I am today. She got married when I was 10, and we moved to Cicero. So not very far away from Tipton, but she married a fireman. My stepdad is the current fire chief in Noblesville. So it's a pretty cool transition to go from no dad to the dad that drives the fire truck.
Yeah.
That was pretty sweet. And then, so I went to Hamilton Heights High School. And then when I graduated, I went to Indiana State to run track down there for the Sycamores.
Wow. Let's maybe, if you don't mind, double click on sort of that 0 to 10. I mean, you didn't know any different, right? Not having a dad growing up and living with your mom and your great-grandparents, you said. But reflecting on that, like not having sort of that male presence in your life, you know, as a immediate biological father, any insights or things that you're kind of like, man, that like I'm probably this way because of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm this way because of my male presence, which was my great-grandfather, Grandpa Fox. Absolute definition of character human being. He married the lady next door who was recently widowed and had 3 boys and raised those 3 boys like they were his own. Had a big hand in raising my mom and her brother and then me.
Wow.
None of them were his biological children or grandchildren. And he was a staple of the Tipton community, head usher at First Baptist Church in Tipton.
Yeah.
And he just embodied character and was just a tremendous human being that I try to be as close to as I can every day.
Wow. What was his name?
Gene Fox.
Gene Fox. When did he pass?
Oh, man. Probably around 2012, 2013, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, I had great father. My stepfather is an amazing human being, Matt Mitchell. He taught me a ton and was an outstanding dad to me. And then I had some really great father figures in my life between my high school track coach, my college track coach. It's always been, I was never, not having a father figure in my life. There was always somebody constant there.
That's amazing. So a lot of days hanging out at the firehouse from 10 to 18, or what was that like?
Yeah, so they were all basketball players. I used to go play basketball with those guys all the time. It seemed like almost all the starting five from Marion College ended up being at the Noblesville Fire Department at the same time. They went and competed at the World Police and Fire Games when Indianapolis hosted it, and that was really cool seeing them play against like the German or different German teams and teams from all over the world that were police or fire. And in a lot of those cases, there were semi-pro basketball players on their team because that's how they got paid, was they would work for the government. But that was a really cool experience.
Yeah, very neat. Well, so you go to Indiana State, I believe, to run track and cross country. So where did this love or this skill in running, how did you discover that?
Yeah, I backed into it. I think like most cross-country runners in Indiana, I started running cross-country to get in shape for basketball, and then pretty quickly realized in high school that 5'2" isn't going to go to college for free very many places. And I, kind of realized I was okay at running and put all my cards in that deck. And it worked out. I remember going through the recruiting process, and I wasn't sure what this was like. It was helpful that my stepdad had played college sports. He was a basketball player at Marion. So he was really helpful in that. But, I went on ESPN.com during my free period every day and looked up the athletic websites and then filled out their forms to just let them know I might be interested.
Yeah.
And it gave me the opportunity to see a bunch of colleges that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. My final three came down to LaSalle and Philadelphia, Indiana State and Michigan State. And I chose Indiana State because of Coach McNichols. It was a no-brainer. We hosted the NCAA cross-country championships every year, and I wanted to be a steeplechase runner. He, at one point, had been the United States hurdle coach, and he was a distance coach. So I was like, well, that's obviously he knows how to do the steeple.
Yeah.
I want to go run for him. And it was a tremendous experience, and I absolutely loved running for Coach McNichols.
Wow. Is he still the coach?
No, he passed.
He passed.
Yeah,
Okay.
he passed coming back from a track coaches conference.
Wow.
Had a heart attack in the airport, but he was just such an influential figure. Even when I left ISU and was in the Army, he would write me every week and give me updates on how the team was doing and check in to see how I was when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Wow,
he was
incredible.
just, a really great human being.
Yeah. So real quick, before we get to your time with the military, running track at Indiana State, what were your events?
So I did everything from the 1500 to the 10K in track, and then I ran cross country. I liked cross country more. I wasn't as good at it as I was at some of the mid distance events in track. I always wanted to be a really good steeplechase runner. What I found was I was better at the 5 and the 10, and so I would end up going to do the 10K at conference championships, and had a pretty decent career while I was there.
Yeah. Explain to our listeners who don't know what the steeplechase is.
So the steeplechase is a 3,000-meter race, which is just a touch under 2 miles. And every lap, there are 5 basically pommel horses. It's not a hurdle because it doesn't fall over if you run into it. They're 36 inches tall, so they're right about my hip height. And on one of them, there is a water pit on the other side.
That's right.
So you have to jump over that into the water, ideally 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And there's really great YouTube video of Snoop Dogg finding it for the first time in the last Olympics. And he reacts like you would expect somebody to react when they're like, why are they jumping over it? Why is there water?
It's so I'd love to know the history of like how that event came to be. It's just
it was
like, let's
horses
put a,
first. Yeah.
Okay.
It was horses did it first. And then I guess,
Like,
some
let's see what
crazy
the
people
humans
in
can
Europe.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So you're at Indiana State, the Sycamores, going to school, running track and cross country. And I think you shared at lunch, senior year, end up really leaving early and joining the military. Talk to us about that decision and that transition.
Yeah. So I got injured my junior year. I had to have surgery and never really quite came back from it. And I also had never been a normal college student up to that point. Like track kind of keeps you busy, right? And you've got to stay in really good shape. And you're at study tables in the morning and weights, and you've got to eat everything in sight, and you're always running, and there's not time to go do things that other college students may be doing. I experienced that for the first time, and frankly, didn't make some of the best decisions. And I was pretty quickly on my way to partying myself out of college and realized I needed to make a change. And at that time, I still don't understand where this foresight came from or how I thought of it. But I was like, I'm heading nowhere quickly. I've got to do something to put some discipline back in my life. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just join the Army. Like, they make you have discipline, right? And so I went to the recruiter's office and said, I want to be an infantryman. And the guy tried to talk me into becoming a combat journalist because that's what my undergrad was originally in. And I was like, no, if I'm going to do this, I want to do the full thing. Sometimes I wish I would have chose that route. My knees and back would kind of wish I would have chose that route. But no, it was a great experience. I mean, I'm still currently in the Indiana National Guard, but yeah, I did 6 years on active service post Indiana State and ended up finishing my degree while I was in the Army.
Wow. So an infantryman, as someone who wasn't in the military, I have an idea of what that means, but what does that look like? And talk to us about, I think you did, a couple tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan. So maybe walk us through that experience because you were in combat, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I was what we would consider a straight leg. So I didn't go to airborne school and I wasn't air assault, which is helicopter rappelling. I would just had a backpack and walked. So the infantry is the front lines, right? It's what you see in Band of Brothers. What you don't see is all the stuff that doesn't happen or that happens not on combat. So the late nights, how, being out in the woods for weeks at a time when it's just raining on you. I've got it. There was one field exercise where we were out for a full week and it had rained the entire time. You were sleeping in the rain, you were eating in the rain. And one dude on Wednesday afternoon found a dry towel at the bottom of his rucksack. And we all literally stood in line just to dry our hands off to have that little bit of dry feeling for 30 seconds before the rain made your hands all wet again. But yeah, so I was originally stationed right after basic training. My wife and I moved to El Paso, Texas to Fort Bliss with the 1st Armored Division. I went to Iraq from there. And then when I got back, actually, the last month in Iraq, I had orders to move to Fort Drum, New York, which is about an hour north of Syracuse. So Jenny and I have lived on the border of Mexico and the border of Canada. We preferred the border of Mexico, weather-wise.
All right, yeah. A little warmer. Yeah.
Yeah. When the first year we lived at Fort Drum, it snowed on Halloween, and it didn't stop till Mother's Day.
Wow.
It is, So yeah, 2 of our kids were born there. There's not a whole lot else to do.
And how long were you in Iraq? That first
I was in Iraq for a year. Was home for about 9 months, and then went to Afghanistan with 10th Mountain. Was there for a year, and then came home. My first son was born while I was in Afghanistan. I was able to come home and be there for the birth, but I left. He was 10 days old. I came back. He was 5 months old. Wow. Our second son, Ben, was also born in Watertown, and then about a year later is when my contract was up, and we had made the decision that it was time to go try to be a civilian for a little bit. At the time, they had this thing where if you joined the Guard for a year, they would get rid of the rest of your inactive service. I did it for a year, and we kind of were like, this isn't that bad. The health insurance is great. Let's stay in. And my wife said, well, if you're going to do this, go through officer school and let's get the good retirement. Not that there's, good or bad, but you get a little bit more as an officer. So I did that after I finished my MBA at Butler, went through officer school, and I'm now a captain in the Indiana National Guard.
Wow.
About 18 years of service. So
that's remarkable. Thank you for your service.
Thank
you. It's in my new role with the 500 Festival, we have a memorial service every year, the Friday before. And so I'm really looking forward to being a part of that with Gold Star families and others. But it's just, sometimes it just feels like folks like yourself, it gets overlooked by the rest of us that didn't, serve in the military. And I know there's a lot of just, recovery and therapy, right? To kind of live a healthy life, both mentally and physically after those experiences. So thank you for what you did for our country. Thanks for joining us here on Talent Scout. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, so stay tuned. Most organizations hit a point where growth stalls. The message blends in, the site stops converting, pipeline softens. That's when I tell leaders about Prolific, the growth firm, for purpose-driven leaders. Through full-service marketing and strategy, they clarify the story, rebuild your go-to-market, and drive sales. Most importantly, Prolific holds itself accountable to the metrics that matter to you. If you're ready for your next growth stage, learn more about Prolific at prolifichq.com. You decide you're going to, join the Guard. You've got 2 young boys in New York, figure out civilian life. How did you get from Fort Drum, New York to Indianapolis?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. So we went on vacation 2 weeks before I got out of the military. And then the last week you're in the military, you've got all these things you have to clear, right? You've got to, make sure that you don't owe anybody anything. You go to like every building on post and you get them to sign a thing, and then you get your paperwork and you're allowed to leave. That Tuesday, because the Monday was Veterans Day, November 11th, 2013. That Tuesday, I get a phone call. That was the day our household goods were supposed to arrive at the house that we were renting in Noblesville at the time. And it was the moving company, and they said, hey, your stuff's not going to be here on time. Somebody broke into the warehouse overnight. We need to do an inventory to see what was taken before we can, start getting rid of, taking stuff to homes. And then 2 or 3 hours later, they called me back and they said, well, we've got good news and bad news. The good news is the truck's on the way to the house. The bad news is there's not much in it because most of what they stole was from your truck and your household goods. So we, about 80% of everything we owned got stolen off that moving truck. And I had some really, really great leadership. First Sergeant Jason Stommer, I called him and he said, you know what, come to this building. I'm going to come with you. We're going to get your paperwork now. I'll get all the rest of your stuff taken care of. You just go home and be with your family. And so I got on the road that afternoon. The car broke down 3 hours into the drive in Buffalo, New York. I've got a 100-pound dog with me, just sitting in this waiting room of this like roadside maintenance place. And it turns out I needed a belt for this Volkswagen I had, and the dude couldn't figure out how to put it on when they finally got it there. And by now it's like 5 o'clock at night. And so I called my stepdad and said, I need you to call a Volkswagen dealership in California because I know time zone wise, they're not going to be closed yet. And have them find a belt like diagram for a 2001 Volkswagen Passat and fax it to this number. So they do that. I hold the diagram for the guy while he puts the belt on. And then Dirk and I get back on the road and we end up rolling into Cicero about 3-4 o'clock in the morning and, have to start putting the pieces back together.
Wow.
It's fun,
Almost starting from scratch.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We had left was our bed, the crib, and the kitchen, like our appliance.
And 2 young boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, and that was a really good, the community came together.
Yeah.
There was a lot of folks came and helped us out. We went through the insurance process. We got our check to kind of start over. I remember the check was like right at $7,000. And I was like, this is what the Army thinks my life is worth right now. And this is how, we started with a kitchen and $7,000 and started our life back here in Indianapolis.
Well, I would say the last dozen years or so, you've had quite the rise to now, a C-suite role with the Indy Chamber, which is obviously a huge player in our community. And so I want to talk maybe before we get to the Chamber, just about InVets. You previously served as CEO of InVets. It's a unique organization. And for our listeners who don't know about InVets, tell us how it got started and the work that it is doing to help veterans.
Yeah, so InVets was started by a guy named Wes Wood in 2018 or 2019. It was 2019. So it was a project. At the time, he was at Connexus, and it was a project to help manufacturing companies hire veteran talent. So there were 5 manufacturing companies originally that funded this project. Over time, that grew. The Lieutenant Governor Crouch at the time, found out about it and wanted it to be a statewide effort in all industries. Her staff originally funded it in 2020, and that's when Wes called me. I had been doing some volunteer work at the time with InVets because, it was just Wes.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of connections for some companies here in Indianapolis that if a veteran was coming through, I could at least, help him get a foot in the door.
Yeah.
He called me. I was at Fort Benning in Georgia, and he said, "Hey, I just secured funding. Like, I need somebody to come on and be the director of veteran engagement." So I started at InVets on April 1st, 2020, to be the person in charge of the team that traveled to military bases all over the country to tell people why they should want to move to Indiana post-service. And obviously, quickly, no one could travel.
Yeah.
So we had to get real, we had to pivot quickly. And what we realized was a lot of the transition assistance program, that's what it's called on base, TAP, they didn't have the ability to quickly transition everything to virtual. So we could host these virtual seminars on how to write a resume, how to network, how to fill out your LinkedIn correctly. And then we would invite our employers on those webinars, and they would do, one-on-one quick interviews at the end of them. And so what it did was it built a ton of trust with all these military bases because they knew that we were somebody that they could trust to come into their bases after that. They're very, rightfully so, protective of not wanting anybody to be predatory or something like that, just getting somebody hired for money or for the headhunting fee.
And these were bases all over the country?
Yeah, so we were in, I think it was 38 bases across the country. And so we would go to these transition courses, and we would tell people why Indiana is not just a great place to start your career, but it's a great community for you to raise your family.
Yeah.
And it's a really great place for you to start your civilian life. A lot of these folks, it's anywhere between a 21-year-old that did 3 years of service to a 45-year-old, 50-year-old who retired as a colonel.
Yeah.
And everything in between. And it's a scary transition because everything, obviously there's the safety and danger element of being in the military, right?
Yeah.
But everything else is provided.
Yeah.
Your food is provided. You know what you're supposed to wear to work every day.
Pretty prescribed, every day.
Like, you know what time to be there, like what uniform to be in, and like it's simple. And if you do those things well, you can have a really good career in the military if you show up to the right place in the right time in the right uniform. And so coming out, it's really hard because the civilian world doesn't work like that. And day one of basic training, you know exactly what you have to do to retire as a sergeant major. You know how many schools you have to go to, you know how many years you have to be at every rank.
Yeah.
I would challenge you to find one job in the civilian world where you can show up day one and they show you the exact path to become the CEO.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't exist.
Doesn't work.
And without having that network and that community, it can be really daunting and really challenging. And when I was coming out of the military, I found that a lot of people I knew would get out and they would struggle and then they would come right back in. And so to me, not going back into the military was a success. But I also, like I said, I had a degree when I left. I got my master's pretty quickly after, and I still bounced around to a few different places and had kind of a hard transition the first few years. And I thought, if this is this hard for me, how hard is it for everybody else? And what can I do to like make that transition better for people?
Yeah.
On top of that, like this is a state that I absolutely love, and I want to be able to promote it and tell people why they should want to live here. Like, in my opinion, Indiana should be the number one destination for veterans when they leave the service. There's a lot of different places for them to go work and start their career. There's everything but mountain and ocean. We have beaches.
Yeah.
You want the rolling hills and you want that type of lifestyle.
Lake,
you can go down south if you want to, more urban community. We've got Indianapolis, we've got Fort Wayne, we've got Evansville. There's a lot of great places. And then you're only ever 30 minutes from anywhere you want to be. You can live out in the boonies and work downtown and have a 30-minute commute.
Yeah. That's really cool how you were able to leverage your experience, in the Army to then now you're starting to put it to use to attract talent, specifically a niche of veterans to Indiana, and then leading into your current role where you're able to build on that in a much broader platform, right, at the Indy Chamber. So maybe tell us about, I think you're coming up on 2 years in this role with the Indy Chamber, but what made it attractive? You eventually moved into the CEO role at InVets, right? But why was this the right time to join the chamber and to take a pretty, key role leading talent attraction, marketing, comms, events? And I do want to talk about what you're wearing on your shirt there here in a minute, Speed City. So I know that falls under your purview as well. So yeah, just what made this the right timing and right opportunity for you to make the lead?
So 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to be accepted into the Stanley K. Lacey Leadership Series. And over that year of being with that class, the best class 47, what I really learned was like I wanted to start to shift my focus kind of away from statewide work and more into city or Indy region. I also started to kind of have some conversations with my wife around like, do I want to be the veteran guy for the rest of my career? I didn't want to be pigeonholed into one specific type of work for the rest of, till I retire. And I made a phone call to a friend of mine who was at the chamber, actually on behalf of someone else. So a friend of mine was about to apply for a role at the chamber, and I said, "Oh, I know a guy over there. Let me call him and see if I can find anything out about the position." So I called Blake, who I've known since high school.
Blake Roebuck.
Roebuck,
Great guy.
he's one of our VPs. He said, "Well, you know, somebody's already kind of pegged for that job, but it's weird that you called because we were talking about you this morning." And I was like, "What for?" And he said, "Well, we're looking for a new chief marketing officer, but we're going to add this talent attraction like side to it. And there are just so few people that have done like pure talent attraction in the region. Would you be willing to have a coffee about it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a cup of coffee and having a conversation." And 3 months later, I was starting as the chief talent and marketing officer. So
that's great. Well, you guys are having known just a lot of the people, including your CEO, Matt Mindrum. I know you guys are up to a number of big things. You've got, I think you told me 57 events you're doing this year. So maybe talk to us about just what are some of the big initiatives that we need to be aware of that the Indy Chamber is helping to convene and lead right now in our community.
Yeah, so we went through the transitional period that anybody does when you get new leadership. So Matt started a little over 2 years ago, and then our entire executive leadership team is brand new.
Yeah,
we just finished our AI Accelerate Indy 2030, so our 5-year strategic plan, and we're really focused on 3 main areas now. One being economic development regionally, and so we just hired a new chief economic development officer back in the fall, and we're really focusing on that site selection process and getting people to understand why the Indy region should be where they want to move their next business or their headquarters. And so the way that kind of works is, we really get them on the hook to want to come to the region, and then we let our municipalities kind of compete over where they land specifically. And then telling Indy's story and attracting great talent, and retaining great talent. So telling Indy's story, I think that we have a blessing and a curse of how humble we are as not only Hoosiers, but Midwesterners. There's a lot of really great stories to tell about this area and about this region. Yeah. And we have this new campaign around Indy being an acronym for "I'm Not Done Yet," which is just such a powerful message that you could think about in so many different ways. And so we have a call out to the community to submit your videos and tell us how you're not done yet. Yeah. And then we're going to host a story summit on National Storytelling Day at the Central Library to share these videos and to highlight how to tell your story and to really promote the region. And that bleeds directly into talent attraction and retention. So there's the pure talent attraction. Hey, have you ever thought about living in Indy? What can we do to get you here? Yeah. But then there's, how do we keep our college graduates here? Yeah. We have 34,000 new college students from out of state that come here every single year. We lose 25,000 grads. Sorry, it's the other way around. 25,000 come in. We lose 34,000 a year. So we're negative 9,000.
Wow. Including the ones who grew up here and go to Indiana college and end up leaving the state. Yeah.
So, and credit to our great colleges and universities for being able to attract that out-of-state and international talent. But how do we keep them here? Yeah. And we have this theory that they're not experiencing Central Indiana while they're in West Lafayette or Bloomington or South Bend. I mean, just about anybody I've talked to that went to Purdue or IU or Indiana State, did you spend any time in Indy when you were in college? And they're like, well, I went to the airport. Yeah. And we have this theory that if we can get them here and get them to experience it, we're all of a sudden we're on the list. Yeah. Right? This 22-year-old college junior that spent a really cool weekend on Broadway in Nashville is thinking, oh, I had fun, I should move there. Yeah. What they're not, but they haven't experienced the weekend in Indianapolis. nor are they thinking if they live here on their salary and their rent here, they'll probably spend more time on Broadway in Nashville than they would if they lived in Nashville for how much they're paying in rent there. So those types of opportunities. And then we also do work with INCAP, the Indiana Career Apprenticeship Pathways, which so our role in that is to host the apprenticeship fair every year. If you would have told me when I took the job at the chamber that I was going to spend so much time in Zurich, Switzerland, I would not have believed you.
Yeah. How many times have you been there?
I've been twice so far. I'm going again in April.
Okay.
And because the Swiss do the best apprenticeship model in the world, and as a state, collectively, we've decided if we're going to do this, why wouldn't we model it after the best place in the world? Claire Fidian Green at Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation has been leading this charge for a decade, and we're ahead of every other state. There's only 2 other states, Colorado and New York, that are kind of going down this path. We were able to get the legislation around the new diploma, and we're hitting the ground running. There'll be apprentices starting this fall.
Wow.
And they'll be doing apprenticeships while they're in high school. Maybe go to college, but they'll be ready to work as soon as they're done with high school.
And you have a cohort of companies that are signed up to host those apprentices? Is that how that works?
We don't. So that's the infrastructure exists, yes. So there's 6 current industries, and each industry has the companies within. So healthcare, life sciences, manufacturing, and logistics.
So that's for high schoolers. And then back to your point on college students that either come here for college or grew up here and choosing Indiana college, but we're at a net negative 9,000. I've also found that, it'd be great if they all could do an internship in Central Indiana, right? That's probably unrealistic, but also just when you have a relationship or 2 here, right, with a business leader and some social capital, like that makes it a much more stickier place to stay. And you say, you know what, like I had a great summer at Dormicaba, or pick your company, right? And I got to go downtown and experience some of the cultural amenities, and wow, my dollar goes a lot farther here than Chicago or something like that. So it is there does need to be, and I know this is what you're getting at with the apprenticeship program that Claire and so many others. I know Lex went there a few years ago to Switzerland for their trip, but there really needs to be a coordinated effort to kind of just with all of our higher ed institutions to say how do we kind of expose our students, right, at all of the great higher ed institutions to Central Indiana, and as well as other key metros that you've already outlined, South Bend, Evansville, Fort Wayne, other communities that have some big companies there.
Yeah, and we've worked really well with our institutions around the state. They're very much interested in this concept, and we've done Fast Forward for 4 years now, which is for college interns. So it doesn't matter what college they go to. If they're interning at a company here in Indianapolis, we host a giant event for them every year. Had about 600 that went last year, hoping for over 1,000 this year. It'll be at Victory Field this summer. Last year it was at Lucas Oil. The year before it was at Gamebridge. But what's interesting about that is, the kids are not only getting to network with each other, we have other opportunities for them to kind of get integrated into the city. So we have free tickets to Indianapolis Indians games or Indiana Fever games or the fair or the track or the ISO. Like you name what what you like to do, we probably have a partner where we can get you there, and then you can start to get involved and get to know the community a little better.
That's great. So what would you say? There feels like there's a lot of on-ramps to get engaged with Indy Chamber, but especially for 20s and 30s that are out there listening, what's the best way to plug into the work you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to make Indianapolis better and the greater Indy region better. So I would say start by find something that you like and go get involved with it. Like find something in your community, whatever your hobby or whatever your interest or skill set is, there's a way that you can go get involved. Start there. From there, see if the business that you work for is a member. And if they aren't, bring it up and have them email Emily at at the chamber about membership. But then, like you said, we host over 50 in-person events a year, and I think they're great. We have, just next week, Nate Feltman is moderating a panel with Leonard Hoops and Patrick Tulty and Joanne Scott around the economic impact of the Final Four.
Great.
Last year, John Green and his wife came and did a panel with me at Turntable in Broad Ripple. We do a really good job of finding different areas that make sense, making them unique, and making them something that people want to come to.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a member to come to all the events. Some of the events you do, and then some of the events you have to be at a certain membership level.
Yeah.
But there are events that aren't exclusively for members, and it's a way for you to come kick the tires and see if maybe membership might make sense for you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's lots of different ways to be involved and get engaged. It's just a matter of what makes the most sense for you.
Just start, take some action. That's great. Well, I want to as we wrap up here, I've got some more just personal questions of kind of things that make you tick or people that have influenced you. I always like to ask about mentors, the role of mentors. So, Blaine, maybe who was a mentor that really believed in you and changed your paradigm for what's possible?
Yeah, I mean, I already talked about Coach McNichols. He was a huge mentor in my life. Another one that was interesting is John Merland, who oddly enough was the president of the chamber for a while.
Yeah, Old National Bank too, right?
Yeah, Old National, yeah. So when I was at Butler, I went through the Board Fellows program where you get paired with a mentor and you sit on a board with them and do a project. And I got to sit on a board for Right Fit, which was Cal Burleson's youth initiative through the Indians. And John was just such a great mentor and opened so many doors for me. And he's the one that really showed me that, like, no matter what you want to do here in the city, like, if you go down the path and you go through the doors when they get cracked, you'll have the opportunity to do it.
It's a meritocracy.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And he introduced me to so many people that I thought, like, this person's never going to meet with me.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, 0 people said no.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's true. Yeah, I don't know John well, but certainly know the name and know that he had a big role in this community. And that was through your Butler MBA experience. Very cool. Well, I also know you're still a big runner. That's impressive, even with the knees, as we're getting up in age here, Blaine. But and you've got some pretty ambitious goals. So run a marathon in every state. Is that right?
Yeah.
So where are you at in that journey?
So next month, as long as I stay healthy, I'll do State 23 in New Mexico at the Baton Death March.
Wow.
Which sounds terrible. And then, ideally, I'll be more than halfway by the end of this year. I'm still slated to do Jersey and Washington State later in the year. So we'll see. Last year I had some injuries and travel woes that I only got one state in. So I got to kind of make up a little bit this year if I still want to do it before I turn 50. So
3 in a year. Oh, is that the goal by the age of 50?
Yeah, 50 by 50. Yeah.
All right. I'd also like to talk about your involvement in the community. Obviously, you touch a lot in your day role with the chamber, but you're involved in some pretty cool organizations, both I believe you serve on the board of the Indiana War Memorials Foundation and the Indianapolis Indians Charities. Talk a little bit about each of those. And I don't think a lot of people probably are aware of, like when you were filling me in over lunch, just the amount of land and properties that the War Memorials Foundation manages and also the work of the Indians Charities.
Yeah, so the War Memorial Foundation is the fundraising arm. So the War Memorial Commission is obviously a state agency. They can't raise money. Yeah. There are certain things that they get budgeted every year for maintenance on our properties. The foundation is the ability to be able to go raise money for anything that may pop up that wouldn't be budgeted, like some vandalism or something like that. One of the biggest fundraisers for that is buying a brick for a veteran on the circle. So if you walk around the circle and you see people's names on those bricks, that's all fundraiser from the Indiana War Memorial.
Very cool. I didn't know that.
The Soldiers and Sailors Monument right there on the circle is one of their properties, as is the War Memorial, the obelisk. We have the second most memorials of any city behind Washington, D.C.
I'd heard that.
Yeah. It's
Military Park.
Military Park, yep. There's a few memorials on the canal as you go down there. On the north end of American Legion Mall. Well, American Legion Mall is one of the properties, but on the north end, there's 2 more. There's a Gold Star Family Memorial and another memorial on the west side. And then, the Indianapolis Indians Charities, like I said, I got involved, 7-8 years ago and did that one little project for Right Fit.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've become friends with a few folks over at the Indians, and the opportunity arose, and they just went through a strategic plan as well. We're kind of learning what the mission set should be and kind of narrowing the focus a little bit because it was kind of all over the place. I'm really excited about that work. The big fundraiser for the Indians charity every year is Swing.
Yeah.
Which is
I need to make it to Swing. I know it's only a few years in, right? That they started
so this will be year 4, 3, 4. And it's awesome. So it's 1930s themed. It's at the ballpark, and there's so many different cool activations. Like, you get to dress up, in your 1930s Great Gatsby garb.
Yeah.
Every dude does the same thing. It's like white button-up suspenders and a newsboy's hat. Like, it seems like there's way more possibilities for the women that go than the men. Although there's one couple that wears like straight-up 1930s baseball uniforms.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's a super fun event. There's a swing dancing dance floor in the outfield. There's really cool activations underneath the dugouts. Last year they had like mini tattoos you could get.
When's
got
the
one.
event?
It is in September. The date, I think it's the 23rd or 24th. It's that Friday.
But you added to the collection last
year?
year?
I did. Yeah, I got a tattoo at Swing.
Yeah.
As did my wife. You got to support everything that comes,
right.
Otherwise they won't bring it back. So it's one of my favorite. I think that event is going to rival Rev in a very short amount of time.
Wow, it's coming for Rev and Zubilation.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Okay, I like it.
Nothing. You got to have a friendly rivalry.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. You got to stay on top of your game. There's lots of great galas and events going on throughout the city, so that's great. And you've got no better venue than Victory Field.
Oh yeah.
All right, last couple questions here. What's your best piece of advice for someone out there listening who's early in their career?
Don't be afraid to go after something that you want to try. And if a door cracks, you got to run through it. You can't think like, is that door cracked?
Yeah.
Like, should I wait? Like, I still sometimes don't understand how quickly I was able to get to a job like this, or even InVets. But it's because like I knew what I wanted to do, and I showed up in the rooms where I thought the people that could help would be at. I got to know them. I listened more than I talked.
Yeah.
And if somebody made an introduction, I like definitely followed up on that. And anytime like a window got cracked or a door got cracked, I just powered through it and took opportunities. I said no to very few things for a very long time. I'm just now kind of at the part of my career where I can I feel comfortable being like, I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
I've got to spread my time a little bit better. Because when I first moved back, I mean, I was saying yes to everything. Like if you had an opportunity for me to volunteer, I was like at sports corp events, like driving a gator around, refilling water at rowing and pulling sticks out of Eagle Creek.
Well, and that's what you should do early in your career, I believe, is like your 20s before you have a family. Most folks like say yes, right? And especially in this city. And, Jim Morris, God rest his soul, even late in his life, 70s, he was still given the advice, find a way to say yes, right? Yeah. Which does get harder. I've got 4 kids, you've got 3, and, you want to be present with them and at their events. But, we live in a day and age where you can kind of weave and bob between work and home life. And so you do have to say no, especially, as you get to our age and there's a lot going on in our kids' lives. But this is such a great community, and there's so many pathways to say yes and to get involved. So
for sure.
All right, last question. How do you define success?
Okay, so this one's tough. This one's the one I thought the most about. And I like a good analogy. So I think I kept coming back to like success is about the amount of people that you've helped or been able to help. And so I think what it is it's how many ripples have you made? Like when you throw a rock into water, if smaller rocks have 1 or 2 ripples, the bigger rocks have multiple ripples. Like if you can help somebody who then is inspired enough to help somebody else who helps somebody else, like that should be the goal, right? It's not like, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to remember how many Saturdays you worked. Yeah. Like nobody's going to remember what kind of car you drove or any of that stuff. They're going to remember you because of the people that you were able to help.
Amen.
And I think that's, Jim Morris is a really great example of that, right? Yeah. Like we have a guiding light when it comes to helping others. And so you should be looking out for whether they're your peers at work, your employees, your neighbors. Yeah. How can you make an impact to make their lives a little bit better today?
That's a beautiful word to finish on. Blaine, I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
And all the great work you're spearheading at Indy Chamber, Speed City. I like it. We need to embrace it. So we'll keep pushing. So
perfect.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Get a behind-the-scenes look at Indiana's most influential leaders. On Business and Beyond, we go beyond titles and resumes to explore the personal stories. pivotal moments and hard-won lessons that shaped Hoosier leadership. Hear from the people driving Indiana forward in their own words. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcast or at ibjpodcasts.com.
Do you want to know what really drives change in Indiana? You won't find it in sound bites. You'll find it in stories. Stories from CEOs, lawyers, coaches, entrepreneurs, and community advocates. That's the IBJ Media Podcast Network. Insightful, local, impactful. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcast.com.